If Putin got his way, Ukraine under the boot of Russian occupation, his forces pressing against a longer border with NATO, and a significantly increased risk of an armed attack against us. It would require a truly gargantuan shift in our deterrence and defence. We need to be ready, because at the end of this first quarter of the 21st century, conflicts are no longer fought at arm's length. If Putin got his way, Ukraine under the boot of Russian occupation, his forces pressing against a longer border with NATO, and a significantly increased risk of an armed attack against us. It would require a truly gargantuan shift in our deterrence and defence. NATO would have to substantially increase its military presence along the eastern flank, and allies would have to go much further and faster on defence spending and production. In such a scenario, we would long for the days when 3.5% of GDP on core defence was enough. We need to be ready, because at the end of this first quarter of the 21st century, conflicts are no longer fought at arm's length. Just over 36 years ago, on a now famous night in November, NATO Secretary General Manfred Wörner jumped in his car and drove through the night to Berlin. In the rush, he forgot to tell his staff in Brussels where he was going. Manfred was heading home to Germany to join the crowds celebrating the fall of the Berlin Wall. Today, a section of the wall stands at NATO headquarters. It was a barrier to keep people in and ideas out. And now it is a monument to the force of freedom, a reminder of the power of unity, and a lesson that we must stay strong, confident and steadfast. Because the dark forces of oppression are on the march again. I'm here today to tell you where NATO stands and what we must do to stop a war before it starts. And to do that, we need to be crystal clear about the threat. We are Russia's next target. And we are already in harm's way. When I became NATO Secretary General last year, I warned that what is happening in Ukraine could happen to allied countries too. That we had to shift to a wartime mindset. This year we took the big decisions to make NATO stronger. At the summit in The Hague, allies agreed to invest 5% of GDP annually in defence by 2035. We agreed to increase defence production across the alliance. And we agreed to continue our support to Ukraine. But this is not the time for self-congratulation. I fear that too many are quietly complacent. Too many don't feel the urgency. And too many believe that time is on our side. It is not. The time for action is now. Allied defence spending and production must rise rapidly. Our armed forces must have what they need to keep us safe. And Ukraine must have what it needs to defend itself.
We certainly cannot return to the days of conscription, but we do need a process of mobilisation. Mobilisation of the nation to protect and defend itself, not against any particular enemy, but to be always ready and to be respected. A new national service will be gradually and carefully introduced in a phased manner starting next summer. This service pursues 3 specific objectives: to strengthen the bond between our nation and our army, to reinforce our nation's capacity for resilience, to consolidate the training of our youth. We certainly cannot return to the days of conscription, but we do need a process of mobilization. Mobilization of the nation to protect and defend itself, not against any particular enemy, but to be always ready and to be respected. The national service will be aimed at young French men and women of legal age who have expressed their willingness during the Defence and Citizenship Day, which will become a day of mobilization by refocusing on the fundamentals. I want to emphasize here that national service will only concern volunteers, and the core will be made up of young people aged 18 to 19. In the event of a major crisis, Parliament may authorize calling upon not only volunteers, but also those whose skills have been identified during this day of mobilization, and in that case, national service would become mandatory. But aside from this exceptional case, national service is a service for volunteers who are then selected to meet the needs of our armed forces.